when I realized the scope of the Panama Papers. It was on April the 3rd, 2016 at 7:48 p.m. I remember this so accurately because it was the moment when I was sitting in the newsroom of my newspaper and Edward Snowden posted a tweet. 12 minutes before the story of the Panama Papers went live on our website and on the websites of 107 publications in 78 countries. A few minutes later, our service went down. Here was a man who had single-handedly changed the course of history and world politics by uncovering one of the greatest wrongdoings of secret services ever. A man whose leaks turned not only into media stories, but also in an Oscar-winning documentary and a movie by Oliver Stone. He called the Panama Papers the biggest leak in the history of data journalism. Let me tell you, the rush of realization even overwhelmed our panic that our digital outlet went black that moment. And remember, this was not a simple scandal. Offshore banking is a worldwide problem, and it's very complicated. It had never shown like that before. The Panama Papers were not only the biggest data leak in the history of journalism, it was also the beginning of a new phase of journalism. With new digital tools and with a new approach, journalism today can do things we couldn't dream about before. We always knew that a global world needs a global journalism. We just didn't know how to do that. The good news is, it can be done. Let me show you a brief video that we used to summarize the story. You will see the new possibilities right away. When I see this video, it always makes me remember what a seemingly mundane event triggered the biggest story in my professional life. The thing is, we get hundreds of tips, of hints every day at the paper. It's hard to know which one could only make a great story or which one could make history. When we agreed to look upon the data, we were first overwhelmed. In the end, the Panama Papers amounted to 2.6 terabytes of data. This is something we cannot imagine. It means 11.5 million documents. You will need some trucks to transport those. Now, it all fits on a hard disk. Now, this is where we all started. We had to rethink our way to work from the ground up. Normally, journalism is a very secretive business for a reason. You have to protect your source, you have to protect your material, you have to protect your story. In journalism, in most cases, sharing is not caring. It means to lose your story to a competitor. The first steps we managed to do ourselves. The Panama Papers came all from one place, from the law firm Mossack Fonseca in Panama City. The process of verifying material, all this material, is a bit complicated but manageable. We cross-checked samples with public records, with witness testimonials and court files, and with some material we had collected in the years before because we had done a lot of coverage about offshore accounts. There was also a much smaller batch of Panama Papers that had been sold to German authorities a few months or years before. This first batch had already brought on to raids and investigations of big, well-respected banks in Germany and other countries. So we knew if the small batch had led to lawsuits and millions in fines, the huge one, the gigantic one we had in our hands, might change the way how money flows through the offshore industry. But how do you sift through truckloads of documents that affects the accounts of millions of hundreds of people from all over the world? We had to rethink completely our approach. First, we had to outsource some work to machines. For me as an editor, it's still amazing, and I have to remind myself of in situations like this. It's equally important to understand that we need data journalists in our staff. These people can write something that journalism schools do not teach up to now: algorithms. These algorithms are like translators who make the data speak first to us and then to our readers. Without them, the information stays silent. Let me give you an example. We wanted to find out about Mossack Fonseca and their involvements in two illegal activities. One was the illegal financing in politics. The other was circumventing embargoes. The first is a crime threatening democracy. The latter is a way that makes one of the most powerful non-violent forms of international action ineffective. We used one list of illegal financing in politics that contained 130 names. We also used another list that came from the United Nations with people sanctioned by the world community. If you want to find these people in 11.5 million documents, it will take years. Our algorithm did this within a few minutes. So, what now? We have names that are on both lists. We know that there is very likely something fishy going on. We do have very knowledgeable foreign editors in our newsroom, but these editors are not that familiar with all the details in all the countries that showed up in the documents. So we knew that we need help from abroad. We had to rethink again. Our conclusion was we had to share the material. Luckily, Süddeutsche Zeitung is a member of the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, the ICIJ, based in Washington, D.C. This is something like the World League of Journalists who dig out inconvenient truths. Currently, the ICIJ has a membership of 165 journalists in 65 countries. This is the brain power equivalent of a network of mainframe computers distributed around the world. So we started to reach out. We started to share. We started to think about ways how to distribute the finding around the world. In the end, more than 100 news organizations and more than 400 journalists worked on this story. Never ever in the history of journalism did a project of that size take off. In September 2015, we first came together in person. More than 100 journalists from all over the world came to Munich, came to our paper. I remember this day quite well. We are a big newsroom with more than 500 journalists. And that day, our paper was flooded from people from abroad. And the colleagues, they asked me, what the bloody hell are all these people doing here in our house, in our newsroom? And at that time, in our newsroom, in our newspaper, just 5 or 6 people knew about the whole project. So I tried to explain something with, we try new forms of international cooperation or something like that. But of course, many of our people knew from that day on that there was something that should be hidden away from them. But this meeting laid the cornerstone for our work. Why could this cooperation work? Why was it so successful? It was because we made a very simple agreement in Munich, consisting with 4 points. Firstly, nobody was allowed to talk about the project. What is extremely challenging for a journalist, because we love to talk about what we do, we love to talk about what we believe to know, especially with our friends and families. Secondly, nobody was allowed to go first. Thirdly, everybody had the same access to the documents. And fourthly, everybody had to communicate encrypted. And believe me, this is, for journalists, it's very challenging because we are not used to that. So, after the meeting, we started to share. It still amazes me till today that nobody leaked a single word about the Panama Papers before April the 3rd. That nobody went first. Okay, one person went first, actually, Edward Snowden. On April the 3rd, 2016, at exactly 8 o'clock, the Panama Papers went live. The fallout was immense. Now you might take this as a hyperbole of a journalist who is talking about his own work. But the Panama Papers never were about abstract money or just some ethically dubious questions. Let me say, the story of the Panama Papers is about your money. It's about you. Estimates vary, but it's safe to say that there are about $30 trillion hidden in offshore accounts. That is almost twice the GDP of the US or of the European Union. Now, all of these $30 trillion that are hidden in offshore accounts are there for some reason, but not every time for shady reasons. During our work, we made it very clear that there can be also legal reasons to have money in an offshore account. That not all the people who put their money there are criminals or tax cheaters. Still, if there are $30 trillion away, a large chunk of this would be to the public. In countries like Ukraine or Egypt, quite literally. But even in a wealthy city like Munich, you can see every day where this money could be put to use. Although quite rich, Munich is not able to keep up with its growth. Instead of new school buildings, we set up containers. There is an enormous lack of flats and apartments, but we do not have enough money for public housing. And we have been discussing, all the people who are from Munich know that, for more than 10 years, whether we can afford a better public transport. You see, offshore money is also about you. Now imagine, if you are a citizen of a country like Ukraine or Iceland. Ukraine is dealing with a war. Iceland was hit by the financial crisis a few years ago very dramatically. There, it is not just about nicer classrooms or about better commuter trains. It's about the well-being of a whole country or a whole society. The Panama Papers had enormous consequences. In the past 7 months, the story moved from the headlines to the streets, to the parliaments, and to the courts. There are currently legal and legislative actions in more than 70 countries around the world. Most importantly, though, the law firm Mossack Fonseca, where all the material came from, is in big trouble and struggling for survival, according to Panama's president, Juan Carlos Varela. Now, all this seems to be good news. Offshore banking is considered as one of the biggest problems of today. Awareness traditionally was not very high. Nobody dies from offshore banking, at least not directly. And it's very complicated. Ask our social media editors who have to tweet stories like that. The even better news is what Panama Papers did for journalism. We entered a new era of investigative journalism that can deal with the challenges of the globalized world. Today's problems are, you all know that, complicated. You cannot report about many of them with just a team of traditional investigative journalists. But now, we have the tools to sift through mountains of data. We have a network of colleagues from all over the world who are determined to find the truth. For journalism, this hopefully was the beginning of a new time when wrongdoings cannot be hidden away from the public any longer because the public eye just went global. 8 weeks ago, we continued our work. We faced another mountain of data. This time it came from the Bahamas. This time we were prepared. This time we had the algorithms in place. This time we had a global network of colleagues to help. On September the 21st, the Bahamas leaks were published. These investigations are another chapter in an ongoing story about how money is hidden away in faraway places. It is another step of journalism that can tackle things that used to be reached out because we did not have the tools. We did not have the network. In the end, it was more than just technical difficulties. Before, we did not dare to take on global issues on this magnitude. Now we do. This, for me, is truly good news.